Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Cato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. Today I'm back with another bright and colorful card and I will share a fun background technique as well. For this card I am starting out by creating my background. I am using the rippled background stamp by My Favorite Things. I'm stamping this onto Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock, and this piece is way larger than I will need. I just find it easier to stamp a background on a larger piece and then cut it down later. I'm stamping that in Versamark ink, and then I will stamp my critters and then emboss everything at once. These inks both stay sticky long enough that I can do that. I'm using some images from the Sky High stamp set, also by My Favorite Things, and I'm stamping those in Versafine Onyx Black and embossing them in Clear Gloss Superfine Embossing Powder by Wow. And for the background, I am using the Bright White Embossing Powder, and then I can heat set this all at once and not have to wait twice for my heat tool to heat up. I die cut that with a scalloped slimline die and then trimmed it down to fit on an A2 sized card. The die is by Mama Elephant. It's from the Slim Window Dressings die. I use some purple tape to mask off the scalloped edges and then I can ink blend my sky background on there. I'm doing a sunset background and I have a set of inks that I always use for this, but I went a shade darker for this card because I wanted them to be a little bit brighter. I'm going from a blue to a yellow, and all the colors will be listed in the description box below if you're curious about them. And each time I blend a new color, I will go back with the previous color to smooth out the blending. Now, because I already have a line pattern on my background, it's not as important to get the ink blending smooth because it's less noticeable if it's not as smooth as usual. Then again, these inks blend out super well, so it's not that hard to get it smooth either. And once I'm done, I can peel off the masking, and I will also buff off any extra ink that's sitting on top of the embossing powder. This makes it bright white again, except for the purple. I think the purple and the pink ink stain the embossing powder just a little bit. I'm coloring in my images with my Karin Brushmarkers, and I'm blending those out not with the blending marker that comes in the set, but with a fine paintbrush and just some clean water. I simply put down the marker in the place I want darkest, and then I blend it out with the paintbrush. This is a really easy way to do watercoloring, but you can absolutely just use whatever coloring medium you're comfortable with. Now, of course, because this is a wet medium, because I'm watercoloring, I am using watercolor cardstock. This is the Canson Montval 200 GSM watercolor cardstock. I can highly recommend this paper for card making. It's pretty cheap. It's the cheapest watercolor cardstock that I found that is actually decent. You can buy it in packs of 100 pages, and the pages are fairly large. I think they're 24 centimeters by 32 centimeters. I think that's about 9 by a little over 12 inch, maybe 12 and a half inch. So these are large sheets. You can cut them down. You can save all your scraps for stamping like this, like I do. And it's also great for ink blending. It's not too textured either, so you can stamp on this quite easily. If you're into watercoloring, you should definitely look into this cardstock. Now I'm trying to limit my color palette for this card because the colors are very bright and I don't want to get my card too busy. So for this parachute, I am basically bringing in the colors that I used in the background. Usually I'd be more hesitant to do this, especially because the orange parachute takes up so much space and it might not stand out enough from the background. But because I have a nice ombre gradient background where I know the orange is fairly at the bottom, it won't interfere with the orange at the top of the parachute. So you'll get the nice cohesion of a limited color palette, but you'll also have the nice contrast because the blue helmet, for example, will be around the orange part of my background, so that will nicely contrast, and the orange part will be around the purple part of my background. I'm just coloring in the bird with some blue and yellow, and then I can fussy cut them out. I will cut out the inside of the parachute, those pieces in between the strings. I will cut those out with a craft knife as well to show off my background and not have a huge space of white. Now here's the fun background technique. I cut out, using a border die, a border cloud die, some clouds to fit on my background. The way I did this is really easy. I measured the space in between the scalloped edges, and that was, I think it was exactly 8 centimeters. I just cut a panel down, and then I cut the clouds borders from that. So, you know, it'll fit exactly in between the space you need, and then you can adhere them on with some liquid glue. Now the glue will show a little bit onto the blue part, but it doesn't show at all on the yellow. I don't know exactly why that is. I was prepared for the glue to show and would have to cover it up with something, but honestly it wasn't that noticeable, so I didn't bother with covering it up. I am also curling up the cloud edges a little bit to make them stand out a little bit more from the background. If you have heavier weight vellum, you might not have to do this because it will be less transparent than mine, but I also like the texture it gives the background. So that vellum overlay is a really nice touch, I think. To add some dimension to my panel, I am using some thick white cardstock, I think 4 layers, layering them together with liquid glue and propping my background up on top of that. And then I can adhere that into the center of my card. To attach the images, I am using some foam squares. I will save you the pain of putting them on and peeling off all the backings. But yeah, there's a lot of foam squares behind there, so I know my image won't sag in the mail. I white heat embossed a sentiment strip, and then I can layer some extra strips of black cardstock behind that, again with the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, to again add some dimension. I can simply glue that on the bottom of the card, and that's it. And now for the embellishments. I took out my little nail art gems again. I love these because they are super tiny. They go to 1 millimeter, I think. It's super tiny, so you can add a lot of fine details on there. Just a little touch of sparkle. These are silver-backed gems, silver-backed clear gems, so they are super neutral, and really they just add a little bit of bling to your project. I'm adding 3 groups of gems. I'm using 4 different sizes, and I'm putting them on my card with a jewel pick. And then I can pick them up one by one, put a little dab of glue underneath them, and let them fall again. I love doing this. This process is so satisfying to me and so relaxing. I could do this all day, every day. These are just little scatterings of gems, and this only works because I have a couple of different sizes of them. This look would be very hard to achieve if you only have 1 or 2 sizes of gems. That's why I recommend you get a nice mix of sizes. I'm folding an envelope with my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board and again some Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock. This is quite heavy for an envelope, but I honestly don't have a lighter weight of this cardstock, and this is great for ink blending, which is what I'll be doing. I'm quickly assembling the envelope with some Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, and then I can get to ink blending. I masked off the corner because for some reason I thought that would be a fun look, and I do think I like it, but I should have not blended all the way to the top of the envelope either. If I had faded it out before I reached the top of the envelope, I think it would be a little bit better. I'm using the same inks as I used on my background. That's why I'm doing this. Bringing in the same colors that I used will bring the envelope and the card nicely together. When you're done with your ink blending, you could also add one of the images from the stamp set on there. This is also a really nice way to tie in your Happy Mail, but I thought this was nice enough. I'm going back in with a couple colors to smooth out the blending in some places. And then I can peel off the masking tape. And I will add a little extra detail as well. I'm just going to use a black fine liner to add a little bit of a dash line in the corner of my envelope. I really love these colors, not just for sunset, but they make a really nice rainbow as well if you add some green at the bottom. I really like how this card turned out. I hope you do too. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up to this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below because I would love to read them. You can also subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos and get in touch with me on Instagram or on my blog. The links for those will be in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.